Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be chosen by God? To walk a path that only He can see, carrying a purpose far greater than the world can understand? Today, we dive into the journey of the chosen one, a life set apart, tested in fire, and guided by the hand of God. We'll explore how the world sees him, how God sees him, and the invisible battles that shape him into a vessel of destiny. Prepare yourself to witness faith, courage, and divine purpose in ways that will challenge what you thought you knew about being called by God. This is not just a story. It's a revelation of what happens when heaven's plan unfolds in the life of the one He has handpicked. He walks among them, yet He is never truly one of them. To the eyes of people, the chosen one can appear ordinary at first, someone from a humble place, someone with nothing in his hands but a quiet faith and a determined heart. Many look at him and wonder why he seems different, why his presence unsettles their comfort or stirs their hidden jealousy. Some call him arrogant, others call him strange, and some whisper about him in the shadows, unable to grasp why his spirit feels so unshakable. They see only the surface, the trials, the scars, the humility. They do not see the crown that is invisible to human eyes. Yet God's vision of the chosen one is entirely different. While people measure by appearance, status, or ability, God looks at the heart. He sees the fire He placed within him before he was even born, the purpose that cannot be erased, and the covenant that cannot be broken. Where the world sees a shepherd boy, God sees a king. Where the world sees a wanderer, God sees a deliverer. The chosen one may walk through rejection, but heaven calls him beloved. He may feel overlooked, but in God's eyes he is handpicked, anointed, and set apart for a work that stretches far beyond what human minds can understand. This difference in perception becomes his test and his training. People's judgment presses him down, but God's favor lifts him higher. The chosen one learns to endure misunderstanding, because God is shaping his character in secret places. The more people misunderstand him, the more God reveals to him who he really is. And though the chosen one may seem alone in the wilderness, heaven is always watching, guiding, and preparing him for the moment when his true identity will be revealed. The eyes of people often become a mirror of their own hearts. When they look at the chosen one, what rises in them is not really about him, but about what his light awakens within them. Some feel inspired, drawn closer to God because of his example. They sense that his strength does not come from himself, but from a higher source, and it makes them long for the same closeness with the divine. Yet others feel threatened, exposed, or unsettled. His very presence seems to reveal what they try so hard to hide. They whisper, they mock, or they distance themselves, not realizing that their response is shaped by the condition of their own spirit. But God sees beyond all of this. He is not swayed by the shifting opinions of men. He does not measure the chosen one by applause or rejection. Instead, he sees the unseen battles the chosen one fights when no one is watching. The prayers whispered in the night, the tears shed in silence, the faith held tightly in the valley of shadows. God counts those moments as victories greater than any crown given by men. Every word of criticism, every glance of doubt, every season of isolation becomes a tool in God's hand, sharpening the chosen one like a sword forged in fire. The chosen one might not fully understand it while walking through it, but heaven sees the shaping. To God, the chosen one is not defined by what people think, but by what He Himself has spoken from eternity. His worth is sealed in the divine promise, not in the world's opinion. And so, while people see someone who is different, God sees His reflection being formed in that life. While the world may see weakness, God sees a vessel of strength. While some see insignificance, God sees destiny unfolding step by step, according to His perfect timing. The silence of the chosen one often speaks louder than his words. When others expect him to defend himself, he remains still, allowing God to be his vindicator. People mistake that silence for weakness, but in reality, it is strength wrapped in humility. It is the kind of patience that refuses to be moved by temporary storms because the chosen one knows that his identity rests in the one who called him. Patience becomes his weapon. While others rush ahead, trying to prove themselves, the chosen one waits on God's timing. This waiting is not idle. It is trust in action. In the secret place, he prays, he listens, he learns. He allows God to build roots so deep that no wind of opposition can uproot him. And though the world may see delay, heaven calls it preparation. His endurance is a mystery to those watching. They wonder how he continues to rise after every fall, how he keeps moving forward despite rejection, how he holds peace when storms surround him. What they do not realize is that it is not his strength alone. It is the unseen hand of God carrying him, the Spirit breathing life into him when the weight becomes too heavy. To people, he may look like he is struggling through ordinary trials, but God sees the chosen one as a living testimony. His scars become a message, his battles become lessons, and his victories become proof that God is faithful. What others see as suffering, God sees as shaping. What others call weakness, God calls training ground for glory. God often hides the chosen one in plain sight, allowing him to walk unnoticed even while carrying greatness within. To people, he looks like just another face in the crowd, nothing to draw special attention. They see his ordinary clothes, his simple routines, and his quiet way of living, and they assume there is nothing extraordinary about him. But God veils his glory until the right season, protecting him from premature exposure and from enemies who would try to destroy him before his time. This concealment is not punishment, it is divine wisdom. If people could see the full measure of what the chosen one carries too soon, their jealousy and fear would rise in full force, and their words could attempt to kill what is still growing. So God covers him like a seed hidden in the soil, unseen by the world, yet watched carefully by heaven. In secret, God waters him, strengthens him, and teaches him how to hear his voice above all others. And while people overlook him, God delights in him. Heaven celebrates the small victories no one claps for, the unseen acts of obedience, the quiet sacrifices that go unnoticed by human eyes. The chosen one is never hidden from God. He is always under his gaze, always within his reach. The world may not recognize him, but God calls him by name. Then comes the mystery. When the appointed time arrives, God reveals him in such a way that no one can deny his hand upon him. Suddenly, the one who was overlooked stands in the center of God's plan, and even his enemies must acknowledge that the Lord is with him. The chosen one does not reveal himself. God does the revealing, and his timing is flawless. Once God reveals the chosen one, the atmosphere around him changes. His life becomes like a lamp set on a hill. He cannot be hidden anymore. People begin to notice what they once ignored, and the weight of his calling starts to stir reactions that reveal the true hearts of those around him. To some, his light is a guide, drawing them closer to God, giving them hope, courage, and faith. To others, that same light feels like fire, exposing darkness they would rather keep hidden. The chosen one does not choose these reactions. They flow naturally from the presence of God upon him. Friends may turn into strangers, while strangers may suddenly draw near. Some will celebrate him, while others will despise him even more. The same presence that comforts the humble can disturb the proud. It is not about the chosen one himself, but about what God has placed inside of him. God sees this too, and he allows it. For the chosen one must learn that his assignment is not to be loved by all, but to remain faithful to the one who sent him. The praise cannot lift him too high, and the rejection cannot bring him too low. His stability rests not in how people respond, but in the unshakable truth that God's hand is upon him. This is why the chosen one often feels the paradox of being both celebrated and opposed at the same time. He carries a presence that comforts the broken but unsettles the proud, a voice that brings peace but also convicts hearts. To men, this may seem confusing, but to God, it is the evidence that his light is shining through his vessel. When the season of exposure comes, the chosen one steps into a delicate balance. Praise begins to echo from some, while harsh words rise from others. Both can be dangerous if not handled with wisdom. But God, in his faithfulness, surrounds the chosen one with protection that is not always visible to human eyes. He shields his heart from pride when applause grows too loud, and he strengthens his spirit when criticism cuts too deep. The chosen one learns that protection is not always the removal of enemies, but the preservation of his spirit in the midst of them. God does not silence every voice that rises against him. Instead, he teaches him to hear his voice above all others. It is this inner guidance that keeps him steady, like an anchor in restless waters. And while people may think they are in control of the chosen one's rise or fall, God reminds him that no hand of man determines his destiny. Only the hand of the Almighty opens doors that no one can shut and closes doors that no one can force open. The chosen one becomes unshakable because his trust is no longer tied to human approval, but to divine appointment. Even in moments when traps are set against him, God goes before him. The very plans designed to harm him are turned into lessons that make him stronger. The chosen one begins to understand that his enemies, knowingly or not, become instruments of his preparation. Their resistance sharpens his discernment, their lies deepen his prayer life, and their opposition pushes him closer to the presence of God. As the chosen one abides under God's protection, something begins to shift within him. What once felt like simple survival becomes a deeper level of strength, a quiet authority that does not come from titles or recognition, but from the presence of God resting upon him. People may not fully understand it, but they sense it. When he speaks, there is weight. When he prays, things move. When he walks into a place, the atmosphere changes. This authority is not something he claims for himself. It is not born out of human ambition, but out of surrender. Because he has walked through rejection, betrayal, and loneliness, he knows that power without humility is dangerous. God entrusts him with authority only after proving his heart in the hidden places. What people see publicly is the result of battles won privately, tears sown in prayer, and faith refined in fire. The chosen one's authority is not just in words, but in presence. Demonic forces recognize it because it carries the mark of God. Darkness trembles, not because of who he is in the eyes of men, but because of who walks with him. This is the mystery. To the world, he still looks like the same person they once overlooked, but spiritually, he carries the weight of heaven's assignment. And so, wherever he goes, the reactions intensify. The broken are drawn to him, seeking the peace that flows through him. The proud resist him because his presence threatens their false security. Some will try to follow him, while others will try to silence him. Yet through it all, God sustains his authority, not as a weapon for personal gain, but as a tool for his kingdom. As the chosen one's authority grows, so does the weight of responsibility. Every step he takes, every decision he makes, begins to echo beyond what people can see. God positions him in situations where the smallest act of obedience can become a life-changing moment for others. The chosen one quickly learns that his role is not about personal comfort or recognition. It is about stewardship of the light God has entrusted to him. This responsibility is often invisible at first. People may see only ordinary actions, a word spoken, a hand extended, a decision made. But God sees the ripples they create in eternity. A single moment of faithfulness can turn a person's life, shift a community, or even redirect the course of events in ways no human mind could predict. The chosen one comes to understand that he carries not just his own destiny, but the weight of God's purposes in the lives around him. With this revelation comes the necessity for discernment. The chosen one must learn to separate what is of God from what is of man. Praise can be a test, opposition can be a lesson, and even his own desires must be weighed against God's will. He discovers that every choice matters, because God's hand works through obedience, not independence. At the same time, the chosen one experiences a deepening intimacy with God. Moments of silence, prayer, and worship are no longer optional. They become the source of his strength, the compass for his authority, and the shield for his soul. He realizes that the greater the responsibility, the greater the reliance on God must be. Heaven has entrusted him with power, but only if his heart remains fully surrendered. As the chosen one walks in this balance of authority and surrender, he begins to face opposition on multiple levels. Some of it is obvious: people who reject, ridicule, or try to control him. Some of it is unseen: spiritual battles waged in the heavenly realm, testing his faith, patience, and obedience. Yet each challenge is intentional. God allows these trials to reveal the depths of his heart and to refine his character, shaping him into a vessel capable of carrying not just personal destiny, but the purposes of the kingdom. The visible opposition often comes first. Friends may turn away, leaders may doubt him, and enemies may plot against him. Each reaction is a reflection of the spiritual weight he carries, a sign that the light within him is too powerful to be ignored. People respond not just to who he is, but to the divine presence God has placed upon him. And the chosen one must learn to navigate these challenges with wisdom, patience, and unwavering trust in God. The spiritual opposition is subtler, but no less intense. Darkness tries to whisper lies into his mind, to tempt him away from his path, to create fear where faith should dwell. In these moments, the chosen one discovers the power of prayer, the strength of Scripture, and the protection of God's promises. What may appear as ordinary moments of struggle are, in fact, divine arenas where his faith is being solidified and his authority being confirmed. Through all this, the chosen one learns a profound truth. Victory is not measured by the absence of trials, but by the steadfastness of his heart. God does not promise an easy path, but he does promise his presence, his guidance, and his protection. And as the chosen one remains faithful, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, he becomes a living testament to the power of God's hand, proof that the unseen work of heaven is far greater than what the eyes can see. As the chosen one endures and overcomes, his life begins to awaken others. People notice the peace in his spirit, the courage in his heart, and the unwavering faith that sustains him even in the fiercest storms. His example stirs something deep within those who are watching. Sometimes hope, sometimes conviction, sometimes a quiet recognition that God is real and at work through him. What he may have once seen as personal trials now becomes a living message for others, that God's hand is faithful, his timing perfect, and his power unstoppable. Some are drawn gently, inspired to seek God themselves. They watch how he responds to injustice without retaliation, how he prays instead of panicking, how he walks humbly yet boldly. Others are stirred more forcefully, confronted by the light he carries, realizing their own hearts have been hiding shadows they can no longer ignore. The chosen one's life becomes a mirror, reflecting both God's glory and the true condition of the human heart. Yet he carries this awakening with humility. He does not seek attention or admiration. He knows that the fruit of his life is not for his own glory, but for God's kingdom. Every life stirred, every heart awakened, is a sign that God is using him as an instrument of divine purpose. He begins to understand that his destiny is not isolated. It is woven into the spiritual awakening of countless others, each person touched by his obedience, patience, and faith. And even as more eyes turn to him, both in awe and in opposition, the chosen one learns to keep his gaze fixed on God. Human reactions can be unpredictable, fleeting, and flawed. But God's purpose is eternal and his guidance unchanging. The chosen one realizes that the greater the impact he has on others, the more fiercely he must guard his own heart, sustain his connection with God, and remain steadfast in his calling. As the chosen one faithfully walks in his calling, he begins to notice the subtle ways God multiplies his influence. A single act of obedience, a whispered prayer, or a quiet moment of integrity ripples far beyond what he can see. Lives begin to change in ways he may never witness. Hearts softened, burdens lifted, faith renewed. What he once thought was small, insignificant, or unnoticed is, in God's eyes, monumental. Heaven celebrates every step he takes, and the invisible impact of his life spreads like light through darkness. People start to sense that his presence carries more than human wisdom. Even those who resist him cannot deny the power that surrounds him. The chosen one becomes a channel through which God moves, touching circumstances, relationships, and communities in ways that cannot be explained by natural means. Each encounter, each act of faith, each moment of patience becomes part of a greater tapestry of divine purpose. At the same time, he remains aware that multiplication often invites opposition. The more lives he influences, the more resistance surfaces, from people who fear change, from spiritual forces seeking to derail God's plan, and sometimes even from within himself, when doubts or weariness threaten to creep in. Yet every challenge is an invitation to deepen his reliance on God, to walk with courage, and to trust that the unseen hand of heaven is orchestrating every detail. Through this process, the chosen one begins to understand that true influence is not measured by recognition or acclaim, but by obedience and faithfulness. The impact of his life is hidden in the hearts he touches, the seeds he plants, and the faith he nurtures. And though the world may not always notice, God sees every moment, every choice, and every act of steadfastness, and he multiplies them beyond comprehension. All of these seasons, silence, trials, opposition, endurance, and multiplied influence, lead the chosen one to the pivotal moments of destiny. It is here that God's hand becomes undeniable, and the fullness of his purpose is revealed. Every lesson, every act of faithfulness, every tear shed in secret, has been preparing him for this convergence. People may stand in awe, some in fear, and others in recognition, but the chosen one knows that it is not about their response. It is about fulfilling the calling God has placed upon his life. In these moments, his authority, humility, patience, and unwavering trust merge, and the ripple effect of his life touches more than he could ever have imagined. The oppressed are delivered, the broken are healed, and the truth of God's power shines brightly for all to see. Those who doubted are confronted with the reality that God was shaping him all along, and those who were drawn to him find hope, courage, and faith strengthened. And through it all, the chosen one remains steadfast, not because of human acclaim, but because he has learned the ultimate secret of his calling. God sees him fully, loves him completely, and equips him perfectly. His identity is rooted in heaven, his purpose anchored in eternity, and his life a testimony of what happens when one trusts fully in the one who calls. The world may try to misunderstand, oppose, or even ignore him, but God's vision of the chosen one never changes. He is beloved, anointed, and set apart. And in the quiet, in the struggle, and in the triumph, the chosen one stands as proof that faithfulness to God's calling will always prevail, revealing his glory in ways that no human eyes could ever imagine. The journey continues, the light continues to shine, and the story of the chosen one remains a living testament that God's plan is perfect, unstoppable, and eternal. Thank you for joining us on this journey of the chosen one. Remember, no matter what the world says, God sees your heart, your purpose, and your destiny. Stay faithful, keep trusting Him, and let His light guide every step of your path. If this message touched your spirit today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can be encouraged and reminded of God's plan for their lives. And comment below. Let us know how God is revealing His purpose in your journey. Stay blessed, stay faithful, and keep walking in the calling God has placed upon your life.